What the hell are you doing to her?
Tristan, no!
Tristan Vale walked into his mother's bedroom and saw the maid holding a syringe, his mother's arm, the needle, Liora's hands, steady and sure. He didn't ask questions, didn't wait for an explanation, just grabbed Liora's wrist and yanked the syringe away. What the hell are you doing to her? Rosemarie's voice, weak, desperate. Tristan, no. But he wasn't listening. He was staring at the black woman in the maid's uniform who'd been in his house for 3 years, thinking, predator, thief, monster. You're fired. Get out. If you're not gone in 10 minutes, I'm calling the police. Liora didn't argue, didn't defend herself, just looked at Rosemarie, whose eyes were filling with tears, whose hand was reaching out, and whispered, I'm sorry. Then she left. What Tristan didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, as he stood there feeling like a hero who just saved his mother, was that he'd just fired the only person keeping her alive, and in 48 hours, he'd realize it. When his mother collapsed, and the ER doctor asked a question that shattered everything. Who's been managing her cancer care? You just watched a billionaire fire his maid for giving his mother an injection. He thought he was protecting her. He thought he'd caught someone hurting the person he loved most. But you don't know what was in that syringe. You don't know why his mother was begging him to stop. And you don't know what's about to happen when he discovers the truth. Because here's the thing about people we don't see. Sometimes they're the ones holding our entire world together, and we don't realize it until they're gone. If you've ever made an assumption about someone based on their job, if you've ever fired someone without hearing their side, if you've ever discovered too late that the person you dismissed was the person who mattered most, then stay with me. Because this story is about to show you what happens when a pharmaceutical billionaire discovers that his Haitian Maid has been doing what he should have been doing all along, keeping his dying mother comfortable with her own money, while he was too busy building his empire to notice his mother was dying. Hit that subscribe button. You're about to witness one of the most devastating realizations a son can have. Now let me take you back to how Liora Bennett ended up in Tristan Vale's house, and why she stayed, even when she was starving. Liora Bennett had been invisible her entire life. In Haiti, she'd been the girl whose family died in the earthquake. In the refugee camp, she'd been a number on a relocation list. In America, she'd been the immigrant whose nursing degree meant nothing because it was from the wrong country. For 10 years, she'd been trying to get her credentials recognized. Applications, exams, fees she couldn't afford, bureaucracy that didn't care that she'd spent 4 years learning to save lives. The American medical system looked at her Haitian diploma and saw trash, so Liora cleaned houses. It was the only work she could get without papers that said she was qualified to do what she'd been doing since she was 22. She'd been cleaning the Vale mansion for 3 years, hired by Rosemarie Vale, Tristan's mother, after Rosemarie had found her crying in the back pew of St. Catherine's Church on a Sunday morning. What's wrong, sweetheart? Liora had looked up at this elegant white woman in pearls and tried to compose herself. I'm fine, just a hard week. Hard how? And something about Rosemarie's eyes, kind, genuinely curious, patient, had broken Liora's defenses. She'd told her everything, about the earthquake that killed her parents and 2 brothers, about the refugee camp, about coming to America at 18 with nothing, about the nursing degree that hospitals wouldn't recognize, about the medical debt from when she'd gotten pneumonia and couldn't afford the ER bill. Rosemarie had listened to all of it, then said, I need someone to help. Manage my household. It's just me and my son, but the house is too big for me to handle alone. Would you be interested? Liora had taken the job, not because she wanted to clean, but because Rosemarie had seen her, really seen her, not as an immigrant, not as unskilled labor, as a person. For 3 years, Liora had worked for the Vales. She cleaned, she cooked, she organized. She made herself useful in the way invisible people do, quietly, efficiently, without asking for credit. Tristan barely noticed her. He was rarely home, always traveling, building his pharmaceutical empire, drowning in work after his wife had died in childbirth 3 years ago. Rosemarie said he was running from grief. Liora thought he was running from life, but it wasn't her place to judge. She was just the maid. Then, 8 months ago, Rosemarie had called her into the sitting room, closed the door, and said 5 words that changed everything. "Liora, I have pancreatic cancer." Leora's world had tilted. "Well, stage 4, inoperable. The doctor says I have 6 to 9 months. Does Tristan know?" "No, and I'm not telling him." "Mrs. Vale, he lost his wife and baby 3 years ago. He's barely surviving. I won't make him bury his mother while he's still burying them." Rosemarie's voice was firm. "I'm not doing aggressive treatment. I'm choosing hospice, comfort care, and I want to die at home." Liora had stared at her. "You want me to help you? You're a nurse, or you were. I know you can't practice legally here, but..." Rosemarie's voice cracked. "I trust you. I don't trust anyone else, and I don't want to die in a hospital surrounded by strangers." Liora should have said no, should have told her this was too big, too illegal, too dangerous. But she looked at this woman who'd given her a job when she had nothing, who'd never treated her like she was less than human, who'd remembered her birthday and asked about her dreams, and couldn't. "What do you need me to do?" For 8 months, Liora had been managing Rosemarie's end-of-life care, pain medication, symptom management, nausea control, monitoring vitals, adjusting doses, keeping detailed logs. The insurance covered some of it, but not the strongest pain meds, not the anti-nausea medication that actually worked, not the things that made the difference between dying in agony and dying with dignity. Those cost $800 a month. Liora made $2,400 a month. She paid $1,200 for rent. That left $1,200 for food, utilities, transportation, and Rosemarie's medication. She chose the medication. Every time. She'd lost 20 pounds in 8 months because she was eating 1 meal a day. She'd sold everything she owned that had value. She'd taken a weekend job cleaning office buildings at night. Anything to keep Rosemarie comfortable, because Rosemarie had saved her life once, and Liora was going to make sure she died with the dignity she deserved. Tristan had no idea. He came home maybe twice a month, stayed for a few hours, asked his mother surface-level questions. "How are you feeling?" "Fine, sweetheart." He never looked closely enough to see that she'd lost 30 pounds, that her skin was gray, that her eyes were clouded with pain. He just saw what he wanted to see, his mother, stable, fine, managing. And he saw Liora the way people like him always saw people like her, as furniture, the maid who kept the house running, invisible. Until the day he came home early and walked into his mother's bedroom at the exact moment Liora was administering Rosemarie's afternoon pain medication. A syringe in her hand, his mother's arm exposed, and Tristan's brain, exhausted, paranoid, primed by years of working in an industry full of theft and fraud, made an assumption. The maid is drugging my mother. He didn't ask why, didn't ask what, just acted and destroyed everything. Tristan Vale had been awake for 36 hours when he walked into his mother's bedroom and saw Liora holding the syringe. He'd flown back from Singapore early, canceled meetings, come home because something had been nagging at him, a feeling he couldn't name. And now he knew why. His instincts had been right. Step away from her. His voice was ice. Liora's head snapped up. The syringe was still in her hand, halfway to Rosemarie's arm. "Mr. Vale, I can explain." "Explain what? That you're injecting my mother with God knows what?" "Tristan, stop." Rosemarie's voice was weak, desperate, but Tristan was already moving. He grabbed Liora's wrist, wrenched the syringe away, stared at the clear liquid inside. "What is this?" "It's morphine, for her pain. She needs..." "Pain?" Tristan's eyes snapped to his mother. "What pain? Mom, what is she talking about?" Rosemarie's face crumpled. "Sweetheart, I didn't want you to worry. Are you sick? Have you been sick and not telling me?" His voice was rising now, panic bleeding through the anger. "I'm managing it." "Managing what?" Silence. And in that silence, Tristan made his decision. He turned to Liora. "You're fired. I want you out of this house in 10 minutes. If you're not gone, I'm calling the police." "Mr. Vale, please let me explain. You were injecting my mother with something to help her. She's in pain. She needs..." "I don't care what excuse you have. You're done." He pulled out his phone. "I'm giving you 10 minutes. Then I'm calling the cops and telling them you were drugging a 60-year-old woman." Liora looked at Rosemarie. Rosemarie was crying silently, reaching for her, mouthing, "I'm sorry." And Liora understood. She'd promised to keep the secret, to protect Tristan from the truth until Rosemarie was ready. She couldn't break that promise now, even if it cost her everything. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Vale," Liora whispered. Then she turned and walked out. She didn't pack, didn't take anything except her purse and her coat. Just left. Behind her, she heard Rosemarie sobbing, heard Tristan's voice, sharp with confusion. "Mom, what's going on? Why are you crying? You're safe now." Liora closed the door, walked down the long driveway of the Vale mansion for the last time, got into her 15-year-old Honda, and drove away from the only family she had left. She made it 3 blocks before she had to pull over, because her hands were shaking too hard to drive, because she'd just lost her job, her income, her health insurance, because in 48 hours, her rent was due and she had $127 in her bank account, because Rosemarie was going to be in agony without her pain medication, and Liora had no way to help her anymore. She put her head on the steering wheel and cried for the first time since the earthquake. Here's what destroys me about this moment. Tristan Vale thought he was protecting his mother. He saw a maid with a syringe, and his brain made a choice in less than 5 seconds. Danger, threat, predator. He didn't ask questions, didn't listen to explanations, didn't consider that maybe, just maybe, the woman, who'd been caring for his mother for 3 years, wasn't trying to hurt her. He just saw what he expected to see, the help, overstepping, dangerous, and he destroyed her. Meanwhile, Liora had been starving herself to keep his mother alive, had been working 2 jobs to afford medication his pharmaceutical company literally manufactured, had been managing end-of-life care with skill and compassion most nurses don't have, and she'd done it invisibly, because that's what people like Liora do. They hold worlds together from the shadows. They sacrifice everything, and nobody notices, until they're gone. How many of us are Tristan? How many times have we made assumptions about the people who work for us? Judged them before we understood them? Fired first and asked questions never? How many invisible people are keeping our lives together while we're too busy to notice? Subscribe if you've ever been invisible to someone who should have seen you. If you've ever sacrificed for people who didn't. Know and didn't care. If you know that the people we dismiss the fastest are sometimes the people we need the most. Because Liora Bennett just lost everything for keeping a promise. And Tristan Vale is about to discover what that promise cost. 48 hours after Liora left, Rosemarie collapsed. Tristan found her on the bathroom floor at 3 a.m., unconscious, her skin gray, her breathing shallow. He called 911, rode in the ambulance, holding her hand, begging her to stay with him. In the ER, a doctor, young, exhausted, competent, took him aside. "Mr. Vale, your mother is in acute renal failure. Her pain levels are extreme. We've stabilized her, but I need to understand her medical history. What's her palliative care regimen?" "Her what?" The doctor blinked. "Her pain management, for the cancer." Tristan's world stopped. "What cancer?" The doctor's face changed. "You don't know?" "Know what?" "Mr. Vale, your mother has stage 4 pancreatic cancer according to her medical records. She was diagnosed 8 months ago." The hallway tilted. "That's not possible. She would have told me." "She's been receiving hospice-level care. Someone's been managing her medications, monitoring her symptoms. Who's her primary caregiver?" Tristan opened his mouth. Nothing came out, because the answer was Liora, the maid he'd fired, the woman he'd threatened with police. "I need to see her records," he whispered. 20 minutes later, Tristan sat in his mother's hospital room, reading the file the doctor had given him. Pancreatic adenocarcinoma. Stage 4, metastatic. Prognosis, 6 to 9 months. Patient declined aggressive treatment, opted for comfort care at home. Medications, morphine sulfate, 15 mg/Q4H. Ondansetron, 8 mg/Q8H PRN. Lorazepam, 1 mg/QHS. And then, in a section labeled Care Team, Primary Caregiver, Liora Bennett, unlicensed, former RN, Haiti. Patient reports, excellent symptom management and emotional support. Tristan stared at the words, former RN. Liora wasn't just a maid. She was a nurse, had been managing his mother's cancer for 8 months, while he'd been on the other side of the world, closing deals. He stood up, numb, and walked to his mother's bedside. She was awake now, weak, hooked up to IVs. "Mom, I'm sorry, sweetheart." Her voice was a whisper. "I didn't want you to stop living your life. You'd already lost so much. You have cancer." "Yes." "For 8 months." "Yes." "And Leora's been taking care of you." Rosemarie's eyes filled with tears. "She saved my life, Tristan, over and over, when the pain was unbearable, when I wanted to give up. She kept me going. The injection I saw, morphine, I was having a pain crisis. She was helping me." Rosemarie's hand reached for his, "And you fired her for it." Tristan felt something crack in his chest. "Where is she?" "I don't know. She won't answer my calls. I need to find her. I need to..." His voice broke. "God, Mom, what have I done?" Rosemarie was crying now. "She used her own money to buy my medication. Did you know that? The insurance wouldn't cover the pain meds that actually worked, so she paid for them herself. $800 a month." Tristan closed his eyes. Liora made maybe $2,400 a month. She'd been spending a third of her salary keeping his mother alive, while he'd been building a pharmaceutical empire. "I have to find her." Tristan found Liora 3 days later. She was living in her car, parked outside a 24-hour Walmart in a neighborhood he'd never been to, would never have reason to visit. He almost didn't recognize her. She'd lost more weight. Her clothes were wrinkled. Her eyes were hollow. He knocked on the window. She looked up, saw him, and her face went carefully blank. She rolled down the window halfway. "Mr. Vale." "Liora, His throat closed. "Can we talk?" "I don't think that's a good idea. Please, I know the truth about my mother, about what you were doing, about everything." She stared at him. "How is she?" "Stable. Asking for you." Leora's composure cracked slightly. "Is she in pain?" "They have her on IV morphine, but she says it's not the same. She wants you." "I can't come back." "I'm not asking you to come back. I'm asking you to let me apologize." "You don't owe me an apology. You were protecting your mother." "I was being blind." Tristan's voice was raw. "I saw you as the maid, not as the person who'd been keeping her alive, not as the nurse who'd been sacrificing everything to give her dignity." Liora looked away. "I found the receipts," Tristan said quietly, "in my mother's room. You spent $4,800 of your own money on her medication in 6 months. She needed it. You were starving yourself. I was managing. You were living in your car. I got evicted after you fired me." The words burst out, raw and furious. "I lost my job, couldn't make rent, and my landlord kicked me out. So yes, Mr. Vale, I'm living in my car, but your mother is alive, so I'd do it again." Tristan felt like he'd been punched. "Why didn't you defend yourself? When I fired you, why didn't you tell me the truth?" "Because she asked me not to. She made me promise not to tell you about the cancer until she was ready, and I keep my promises. Even when it costs you everything?" "Especially then." Silence. Then Tristan said, "She wrote you a letter before she got too sick. She wanted me to give it to you if something happened." He handed her an envelope. Liora opened it with shaking hands. "Dearest Liora, if you're reading this, I'm probably gone, and I need you to know something. You were never my maid. You were my daughter, the one I got to choose. You gave me the most precious gift anyone can give a dying person: dignity. You let me die at home, in peace, surrounded by love instead of machines. Tristan will try to pay you back. Let him. Not because you need his money, but because he needs to give it. He needs to learn what you already know, that the people who serve us are often the people who save us. Go back to nursing, sweetheart. The world needs healers like you. All my love." Rosemarie. Liora was sobbing. Tristan was crying too. "Come back," he whispered. "Please. Not as a maid, as her nurse. Let me pay you what you're worth. Let me give you what you should have had all along." Here's what breaks my heart about Liora's story. She had a nursing degree, 4 years of training, real medical expertise. But because it was from Haiti, because it didn't have an American stamp, It was worthless. So she cleaned houses, and when she found someone who needed a nurse, she became one anyway, without pay, without recognition, without any of the respect she'd earned. She just did it, because Rosemarie needed her, and Liora knew how to help. That's what invisible people do. They see a need and they fill it. They don't wait for permission or credentials or acknowledgement. They just show up, and we don't see them until they're gone. How many Lioras are out there right now? Working jobs beneath their skill level because their credentials don't count. Sacrificing everything for people who'll never know. Keeping promises that cost them their futures. Subscribe if you've ever had credentials that didn't count. If you've ever been invisible to people you were saving. If you believe that the worth of a person has nothing to do with where their diploma is from. Because Liora Bennett was a nurse long before America decided whether to call her one. And Rosemarie Vale knew it, even if her son didn't. Liora returned to the Vale house, not as a maid, as Rosemarie's hospice nurse. Tristan paid her $8,000 a month, covered her rent, gave her health insurance, and every single day, he watched her work. The way she adjusted Rosemarie's pillows, the way she checked vitals, the way she talked to his mother like she was a person, not a patient, the way she made dying look like living. For 4 months, Liora kept Rosemarie comfortable, and Tristan learned what his mother had known all along. Liora wasn't just skilled, she was extraordinary. Rosemarie died on a Tuesday morning in April. Liora was holding one hand, Tristan was holding the other. "Thank you," Rosemarie whispered to both of them, "for being here, for seeing me." Then she closed her eyes and didn't open them again. At the funeral, Tristan gave a eulogy. "My mother taught me a lot of things, but the most important lesson came in the last 4 months of her life. She taught me that the people we don't see are often the people we need most. Liora Bennett kept my mother alive when I was too blind to notice she was dying. She used her own money, her own body, her own heart, and I fired her for it because I saw a maid instead of a nurse. I saw an immigrant instead of a healer. I saw someone I could dismiss instead of someone I should have honored." His voice cracked. "My mother left me a company worth billions, but the real inheritance she left me was this. See people, all of them, especially the ones everyone else ignores." 6 months after Rosemarie's death, Tristan announced the Rosemarie Vale Foundation for Healthcare Equity. Its mission, to provide credential recognition support for immigrant healthcare workers, to fund nursing school for people like Liora, to create pathways for the invisible healers. Liora ran the program, Dr. Liora Bennett, because Tristan had paid for her to retake her licensing exams, get recertified, become legal. In 3 years, the foundation certified 847 immigrant nurses and doctors, people whose skills had been dismissed because of where they were from, people who'd been cleaning houses and driving Ubers while their medical degrees collected dust, people who became some of the best healthcare workers in the country because someone finally saw them. On the 5th anniversary of Rosemarie's death, Liora stood at her grave with Tristan. "She'd be proud of you," Liora said quietly. "She'd be proud of us," Tristan corrected, because he'd learned that the woman in the maid's uniform had been the most qualified person in his house, that credentials mean nothing if you don't have compassion, that his mother had seen what he'd missed, and that the people who save us are often the people we're trained not to see. "Thank you," he said, "for everything, for her, for teaching me." Liora smiled. She taught both of us. And somewhere, Rosemarie Vale was smiling too, because her son had finally learned to see. Here's what Liora and Rosemarie's story teaches us about seeing people. Tristan Vale had everything, billions of dollars, a pharmaceutical empire, power, influence, respect. And he couldn't see that his mother was dying because he wasn't looking. He was too busy building, too consumed with work, too convinced that his absence was justified by his success. Meanwhile, a Haitian immigrant was doing what he should have been doing, showing up. She didn't have money, didn't have status, didn't even have legal recognition of her skills. But she had presence, compassion, the willingness to see someone in pain and help. That's what Rosemarie needed. Not a billionaire son, not expensive treatment, not aggressive intervention. Just someone who saw her, who stayed, who made her last months bearable. And Liora gave her that, at the cost of everything. How many of us are Tristan? Too busy to see the people right in front of us who need us? Too convinced that our work matters more than our presence? How many Lioras are holding our worlds together while we're not paying attention? Subscribe if you've ever been too busy to see someone who needed you. If you've ever dismissed someone because of their job title instead of seeing their heart. If you believe that showing up is sometimes the most important thing we can do. Because Liora Bennett didn't save Rosemarie Vale with money or power. She saved her by seeing her. And sometimes, that's everything. The end.